All right, friends, I'm here again. All right. Um, please, now, on this particular video, you guys have seen the APC Presidential Council list. All right. I've taken a couple of days to go through the list from the beginning to the end and identify the individuals in those particular lists in order to construct my critiques on that particular list. And I believe you guys are going to enjoy this particular response to that particular list. You guys are going to enjoy this response because it takes me time to be able to throw some jabs in it. So please, I don't want to waste much of your time. You guys have seen that list. It has been circulated on the net. Okay. Even the president have recalled that list to amend it. I don't know what he wants to do with it, but what I'm working now is with the current list that is available. It's what I'm working with. And that is where I base my critique and assessments to that particular list. So I want you guys to take your time while you're enjoying your coffee. Follow me and listen to this particular video carefully on my own personal assessment and observations and critique to that particular list. All right, because there are some fundamental interest conflict on those lists and that I need to analyze, bring up, point them out, and call it what it is. So, friends, let's go. Hello, friends. Thank you guys for watching my videos, for your total support. I do appreciate it. For all the seconds, minutes you wasted, I wouldn't call it a waste, but you put in watching my videos and your contributions in terms of your comments. I do appreciate it. Please, at the end of every time you finish watching my video, try to share the videos. Okay. Also, thumbs up are all welcome. Your comments are all appreciated. And then the more I read from you guys, the more it gives me more joy to research and respond to certain things happening in the nation. Despite this is not my full job, I have a career that occupies my time. So it's because of the love of politics that I got involved to contribute to the shenanigans that is happening in Nigeria. So I'll try as much as I can to drop more videos for you guys, and I do appreciate all the time in watching my videos. So this video is all about the list that was released, the APC Council, Presidential Council. For a couple of days, I've been working on it. I've been going through the list, try to understand who is who on that particular list and what they represent. And then there are certain names that I found in that list that baffled me, that sent a shock to my nerves. And I asked myself a question: where does governance begins, end, and politics? Because there are certain names in that list that weren't supposed to be included in that particular list. And I'm asking myself, every presidency have political advisors who advise you on politics, on ethics. And I was asking, does him have political advisors to say no? There's a thin line between politics and governance. And to avoid conflict of interest, this is what you're allowed to do, and this is what you're not allowed to do. But to include certain names on that particular list was baffling. And that is why I titled this particular video, the Tinubu'S 2027 Campaign Council List. Is it a campaign team or a test of Nigerian institution? I repeat, Tinubu'S 2027 Campaign Council List, is it a campaign team or a test of Nigeria's institutions? If I were an ordinary Nigerian voter looking at President Bola Tinubu's newly constituted APC Presidential Council, okay, my first question would not be, can these people win an election? Okay, can they win an election? Okay, my question will be much more fundamental. Where does the federal government end and the APC presidential campaign? Where does it end and where does the APC campaign begins? Because when the president of Nigeria becomes chairman of his own re-election campaign council, the vice president becomes the vice chairman, senior legislators assume major campaign positions, governors take straight responsibility, ministers enter campaign directorates, and also officials handling sensitive government institutions receive partisan campaign assignment. Nigerians are entitled to ask, who will be governing while all these people are campaigning? And even more importantly, how do we guarantee the enormous machinery of the Nigerian state will not become institutional, indistinguishable from the machinery of the ruling party? That is the real issue. First, let us be fair to APC. There is nothing inherently scandalous about politicians campaigning. Tinubu is entitled to seek re-election. APC is entitled to assemble the strongest political organization it can find. Governors are political actors. Ministers are political appointees. Senators and members of the House of Representatives belong to a political party. There is nothing surprising about a ruling party deploying its political heavyweight to win an election. Let's make that clear. And APC supporters can make another reasonable argument. Who better to explain the government achievement than the officials responsible for implementing them? If David Umahi believes Tinubu infrastructure programs has succeeded, why shouldn't he campaign on it? If Mohammed Idris believes the administration has delivered, why shouldn't he communicate that record? If APC governors believe Tinubu deserves another 4 years, why shouldn't they campaign for him? Those are legitimate questions, and those arguments are not unreasonable. But friends, that is only one side of the story. The problem begins when public office and party campaign becomes difficult to distinguish. And I'm going to explain. President Tinubu is not merely APC presidential candidate. He is currently president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Okay? That distinction is enormous. When Tinubu travels as president, Nigerian taxpayers fund the presidential security. Government communications infrastructure accompanies him. The machinery of the presidency surrounds him. Okay? The same problem becomes relevant to ministers, governors, and senior officials. Therefore, Nigerians deserve clear answer. When are these individuals working for Nigeria? When are they working for APC? Who pays when they travel for campaign activities? Who pays for their vehicles? Who pays for their security? Who pays for their accommodation? Who pays for government aircraft where applicable? And who pays their aids? Who pays for the communications? Are government databases, facilities, or personnel being used? Those are not anti-party APC questions. They are pro-accountability questions. The same question should be asked if PDP, Labour, NDC, ADC, or any other party controls the federal government tomorrow. Okay? I believe I'm making some sense. Then we come to fundraising. Perhaps one of the most sensitive appointments on the entire list is the inclusion of the chairman of the Nigerian Revenue Service in the fundraising structure. Think carefully about these optics. Friends, Nigerians, please, if you are watching this video, just take a moment and think carefully about these optics. If you're a corporation in Nigeria, or an international corporation, foreign corporation, or local corporation, think carefully about these optics. That the man, trusted with collecting taxes due to the federal government is included in the list of fundraising. One institution deals with taxpayers, the other operation needs political donations. If, in short, I don't know how to characterize this. Even if absolutely nothing improper occurs, responsible governance is not concerned only with actual corruption. It must also avoid circumstances that create a reasonable perception of conflict of interest. Imagine that you own a major Nigerian company. The company has a significant tax exposure. A senior official from the institution responsible for Federal Revenue Administration also occupies an important position in the president campaign fundraising structure. What happens when the campaign approaches businesses for contribution? Will every Nigerian businessman feel completely comfortable saying, no, thank you, we don't want to donate? Perhaps they will. Perhaps the revenue officials will conduct himself with impeccable professionalism. But institutions are designed precisely so that citizens don't have to depend entirely upon the personal integrity of individual office holders. Government, should avoid creating the perception in the first place. That is the best thing to do, is by avoiding creating the perception of in the first place. The budget office question. The budget office question. The Nigerians find the Director General of the Budget Office within the campaign's financial structure. Again, perhaps nothing improper will happen. We're all assuming. But why create the appearance of overlap between individuals overseeing extremely sensitive national financial responsibilities and the financial machinery of a partisan presidential campaign? Nigeria's federal budget belongs to AP. This is laughable. Nigeria's federal budget belongs to APC voters, PDP voters, Labour voters, or ADC voters. People who support Tinubu, or people who oppose Tinubu, and Nigerians who couldn't care less about politics. Wow. All right. Government money must Nigeria. Government money must therefore remain visibly separated from campaign money. How can you verify that? Not merely separated in reality, visibly separated. Okay? And then there are the controversial names. Okay? I believe you guys have watched my other video. In that list, we have controversial names in that list. Okay? This is where APC has created an avoidable political problem for itself. Some people appearing within this enormous campaign structure have histories involving corruption investigations, prosecutions, forfeiture proceedings, or even previous convictions. Okay? But we must distinguish those categories carefully. Okay? We must distinguish those categories carefully. An allegation is not a conviction. Okay? Those are my motto. An allegation is not a conviction. An EFCC invitation is not a conviction. An investigation is not a conviction. Being charged is not a conviction. A forfeiture proceedings has its own legal meaning. And where somebody was convicted and later pardoned, that pardon has legal consequences. Okay? We must respect those distinctions carefully. Okay? We must respect those distinctions carefully. But a political party is not a courtroom. The legal question is, okay, and I repeat, the legal question is, can this person lawfully participate? Okay, can they lawfully participate? The political and ethical questions is also there. Is this the person you want representing the moral character of your campaign? Okay, those are completely different questions. Those are completely different questions. Let's look at Julie Inyame and Joshua Dariye. These are not merely people who political opponents accuse on television. Both former governors were convicted in corruption cases. Okay, both of them were convicted in corruption cases. Both later received presidential pardons. All right, so that pardon wiped away all those convictions. They have received presidential what clemency and are legally entitled to participate in political life. Is that the reason why they received those clemency in the early time of their presidency? Fair enough. Once you receive clemency from the presidents, that is fair enough. It's within the rule. But Nigerians are equally entitled to ask, of the millions of APC members across Nigeria, why are individuals with such history considered necessary component of a presidential re-election campaign? A pardon can, a pardon can address legal consequences. A pardon can address legal consequences. It cannot command voters to forget history. It cannot command voters to forget history. Let's go to Beta Edu. Here, we must be especially careful. We must be especially careful. Beta Edu was suspended from the Tinubu government following controversy surrounding a payment instructions involving approximately 585 million naira and subsequently faced EFCC investigations. I've narrated this story before. That does not permit anyone to declare her guilty of stealing the money. She deserves the presumptions of innocence until a court convict her or set her free. But that produces another question for President Tinubu. If the allegations were serious enough for you to suspend her from ministerial office and order an investigation, what is the status of that investigation? Nigerians are still asking that question. What is the status of that investigation? Was she cleared? If yes, tell Nigerians. If evidence was insufficient, tell Nigerians. Okay? If the investigation remains open, tell Nigerians. Okay? If prosecutions was recommended, also tell Nigerians. All right? Because returning somebody to prominent partisan activity without explaining the resolution of the controversy inevitably creates suspicions. Okay? Transparency could not resolve that suspicion. When you are transparent to the citizens, that could resolve that suspicion. But let's look at uh, uh, the big fish. I term it the big fish. Abdulaziz Yari. I believe you guys know this man. This is the big fish in the whole list. Everyone knows the story of Abdulaziz Yari, the man running the campaign. Yari is not an obscure member buried somewhere around number 200. See where they hide the name? 200 is where they squeeze in the name. They know what they are doing. He is the Director General. That means his history deserves heightened scrutiny. There has been ICPC proceedings involving asset and fund linked to him, including court-ordered forfeitures. That does not mean Nigerians should repeat every allegations ever circulated about Yari as established fact. That shouldn't. But when someone becomes operational head of a presidential campaign, legitimate questions, okay, about previous public integrity controversy do not suddenly become irrelevant. APC should answer them rather than dismissing everybody asking questions as opposition propagandists. Then there is the president himself. The president himself, Tinubu himself. Okay? This may be the most fascinating structural decision. President Tinubu has named himself chairman of his own presidential campaign council. Is that illegal? From my research, I have not found evidence establishing that merely chairing one's campaign council is prohibited. But Nigerians should be careful about claiming that no presidential candidate has ever done something comparable without conducting a comprehensive historical reviews. But politically, when we talk about politically, the symbolism is extraordinary. In 2023, when Tinubu was APC candidate, President Muhammad Buhari chaired the APC presidential campaign council. Okay, President Buhari was the campaign council. Tinubu was deputy chairman. Now Tinubu is stimulously the presidential candidate. Okay, chairman of his own presidential campaign council. Okay, what does it tell you? That concentration of political rules makes institutional separation even more important. Because Nigeria must not reach a point, okay, listen, Nigeria must not reach a point where presidency equals APC, government equals campaign. All right? Public communication equals campaign propaganda. Am I making any sense? Government resources equals campaign resources. Listen, I say you guys are going to enjoy this video. All right? Public institutions equal re-elections machinery. All right? How can a president appoint himself as a campaign chairman on your own re-election campaign? There must be visible boundaries, and he doesn't respect boundaries. Tinubu does not respect boundaries. But here is the argument in APC defense. I noted this. I noted one APC member giving this defense, and that is why I'm using that APC defense. Tinubu is the incumbent. Incumbent everywhere campaign on their records. Governors campaign for their party is normal. Legislators campaigning is normal. All right. Now, political appointees advocating continuation of their government policies is hardly unusual. Many people, okay, appearing on this list have decade of political experience. That is what APC are going to be telling you. Some possessing enormous grassroots network, okay, that are all the arguments the APC members are going to be giving you. Some understand the election management, that's an excuse. But there are some sensitive ministerial positions that shouldn't get involved in political campaign. Okay? That is a concern. Okay? So if either both of them, some of them understand regional politics, understand policy, understand communications, or whatever excuse you're going to give, fine, fair enough. But there are certain ministers that should be kept away from in getting involved in political activities. So assembling people from virtually every region and political tendency could be interpreted as an attempt to, build a genuinely nationwide campaign. The sheer size of the organization can therefore be read not as a panic, but as a preparation. That is the strongest argument for the list. But here is my own response as a voter. If I put myself as a voter, this is my response. Okay, you don't get a campaign, you don't get to campaign against yourself. All right, you have been president since 2023. The opposition will make promises. Okay, you have a good record. All right, you have a good record. All right, you control neither unemployment figures nor food prices with campaign slogans. All right, now your campaign should therefore be primarily about answering one question: is Nigeria better after 4 years of Bola Tinubu? That should be the election question. Okay, is Nigeria better after 4 years of Bola Tinubu? That should be the election question. not personalities, not intimidations, not political defections, not the number of governors standing behind you, not the number of senators or on your campaign council. All right? So, not whether you can assemble 200, 300, or 500 political heavyweights. The Nigerian voter should ask. The Nigerian voter should ask the Nigerian, what happened to my income? All right? What happened to my income? What happened to food prices? What happened to electricity? What happened to insecurity? These are legitimate questions Nigerians should be asking. Okay? What happened to the naira? Why has the purchasing power has so been weakened that it is worthless? What about unemployment? Okay, educations, healthcare. These are the legitimate questions that opposition parties should be asking. Corruption should not be forgotten. Okay, corruption should not be forgotten. And also, what happened to our national debt? What happened to the promises of 2023? Okay, those questions cannot be defeated by assembling the largest campaign council in Nigeria. So Tinubu has a big problem on his hand. And here is my challenge to the opposition. Sometimes when I argue for and against. Here is my challenge to the opposition. Okay? Don't merely call everybody on Tinubu's list corrupt. That will be lazy opposition. Investigate, document, produce court record, produce EFCC record, produce your ICPC record. All right? Distinguish yourself from others. Distinguish allegation from indictment. Distinguish indictment from prosecutions. Okay? Those are the things expected of you from as being an opposition party. All right? Distinguish conviction from what? Acquittal. You are there to ask the hard questions. Okay? You are there to ask the hard questions. You ask a hard-hitting questions. And where somebody has been pardoned, say so. Then ask the political questions also. Why was this person selected? So all those who are in those lists, you ask them, why was this person on those lists selected? That is how a serious opposition behaves. Don't give APC an escape route by exaggerating. Okay? Make them answer documented fact. Make them answer documented fact. All right? Then ask the political question. All right? These are the ways you can handle the APC by asking documented facts. And there should be no one, there should be one simple demand when you ask those questions. President Tinubu should publicly establish a firewall between the federal government of Nigeria and the Bola Tinubu APC Presidential Campaign Council. Publish the campaign finance procedures. Identify who pays the campaign expenses. Ensure government vehicles and facilities are properly accounted for. Prevent government databases from becoming partisan assets. Require officials occupying particularly sensitive non-partisan or technocratic positions to observe appropriate restrictions that is necessary, and disclose campaign donations in accordance to the Nigerian law. Because this election should never become a contest between the Nigeria state versus the Nigerian opposition. It must remain APC versus other political parties before the Nigerian electorate. That distinction is the foundation of democratic competitions. Okay? That is how opposition party should follow it. All right. The Nigerian state versus the Nigerian opposition, it must remain between APC and other relevant parties. Now, I'm getting close to the conclusion, so just bear with me. My verdict as an ordinary voter. Here is my verdict as an ordinary voter. Is there anything automatically wrong with APC creating a huge campaign council? No. Is Tinubu prohibited merely because he chairs his own campaign council? I have not found evidence establishing that. Okay, so I'm going to be neutral on this. Are ministers and elected politicians automatically prohibited from campaigning? No. Does the inclusion of serving officials in highly sensitive government institutions create legitimate conflict of interest and institutional neutrality questions? Absolutely. There should be a blur line. Do controversial names deserve scrutiny? Absolutely. Okay. Should allegations automatically be treated as convictions? No. All right. Should previous convictions, forfeitures on unresolved investigations disappear from public discussion merely because somebody joins the presidential campaign? No. Okay. And that lead me to question Nigerians should carry into this 2027 election. All right. That lead me to that. Mr. President, are these people serving Nigeria or serving your re-election? Sometimes they can legitimately do both. But that is the question that should be posed to the president. Okay? But where public authority or public money, taxation, budgeting, security, and partisan fundraising intersect, Nigerians have every right to demand a bright red line between them. Because the Federal Republic of Nigeria belongs to approximately 230 million Nigerians. Okay? It does not belong to APC. All right? It does not belong to APC, and it does not belong to the President Tinubu. The presidency belongs temporarily to whoever Nigerians elect. It does not belong permanently to Bola Tinubu and his family. The treasury belongs to what? The people of Nigeria. It does not belong to a presidential campaign council. All right, the ministers are working for Nigerians and not personally to Tinubu and his family. Okay, and government institutions must serve citizens regardless of which box those citizens intend to tick on election day. That is the standard Nigeria should demand today. Okay, and it should remain the standard when another political party eventually occupies Aso Rock. All right, one particular strong investigative angle is not simply look at all these allegedly corrupt people. It is why are officials responsible for taxations, budgeting, justice, information, and other sensitive state functions stimulously occupying a position in the incumbent presidential partisan campaign. Okay? What safeguard prevent conflict of interest or use of state resources for the campaign? That question is much harder for the government to dismiss as partisan politics. All right? So finally, friends, 2027 APC Council stands as it is, waiting for an adjustment. But as a Nigerian, do not lose focus. It is important to ask the hard questions. Okay? It is important to ask the hard question. Do not relent when things are going bad in the governance of Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It is your duty to confront them with the hard questions. Why this name is included in that list? What are the lines between governance and politics? When are these people working for us? And when are they politicking? These are hard questions that deserve an answer. All right, friends, I raise my case. Thank you for watching. If you have not joined my page, please subscribe. And I'm going to see you guys in my next video. Keep watching. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for your support. Bye-bye.